Okay, what we're talking about tonight is temperance and epigenetics. As I've shared with you in the other presentations that we've done, the epigenetics we'll talk about again tonight. I'm just going to give a little bit of a review to let you know what epigenetics is and why I'm talking about these health principles in the light through the telescope of what we call epigenetics. Let's go into this. Temperance and epigenetics. First thing I want to do is define temperance. What is temperance? I looked it up in the dictionary just because I like to look up words and make sure that I know what they mean. There's two definitions given. One was abstinence from alcoholic drink. The other one was moderation or self-restraint, especially in eating and drinking. So when we talk about temperance, we're not just talking about not drinking alcohol. We're talking about temperance or eating in moderation, even things that are good for us. Okay? So let's move ahead. In Eden, in the Garden of Eden, God limited the appetite, prohibiting how many trees in the Garden of Eden? How many trees could they not eat from?
One.
Just one. Okay? Just one. And he also prescribed a diet for Adam and Eve, and that's found in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. I encourage you to read that. It says here, God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat." God created us, and this is the diet that He gave us in the beginning. Now, there is a definition for temperance that I really appreciate, and it's found in one of my favorite books called Patriarchs and Prophets. It's on page 562. It says, "True temperance teaches us to dispense entirely with everything hurtful and to use judiciously that which is helpful." So I appreciate that definition of temperance, because you get rid of everything hurtful and you use judiciously what is helpful. So what is epigenetics? Epigenetics is a study of the changes in gene expression. This is a phenotype. We have genes, we have DNA. The genotype is what's actually in that DNA, what's actually recorded or coded in the DNA. But the phenotype is what's actually expressed. Do we need to stop? I believe it's important to understand these laws of health that we're talking about. There's 8 of them that we're going to cover in this series. Why I'm looking at this through this telescope of epigenetics. The reason for that is because the way you eat, the way you live, the choices, the lifestyle choices that you make changes not only who you are, not only your health, not only who you are, but it changes who your offspring are. Not just for one generation, but for 2 or 3 generations. The choices that you make in your lifestyle can affect your grandchildren. And so I believe it's very important to understand these things. And so epigenetics, as I said, is the study of changes in gene expression. So our genes may have certain things encoded in them, but what is actually expressed can be changed by the way we live, the way we eat, the choices that we make. So epigenetics basically is the switch to switch on or off disease in our body. And so what we're going to learn tonight is how being temperate in our lifestyle can turn off those switches for disease. And it's very important that we do that. One of the things that we discussed when we talked about this epigenetics, and this is a little bit of a review for those of you who haven't been here, is DNA methylation. If you look at this picture, this is a carbon and 3 hydrogens. That is a methyl group, and those methyl groups are added to the DNA essentially, and that helps the DNA to be stronger, healthier. And you remember we talked about the telomeres? Who remembers the telomeres? Good, a lot of you remember the telomeres. Okay, the telomeres are these little, see these red caps on the end of this chromosome? The telomere is a repetition of genetic material. Here's what happens. Every time your cells divide, okay, here's a picture of it. Every time your cells divide, this is The little chromosome right here, right on the end, is the telomere. Every time your one cell becomes two cells, you lose a little bit of that end cap, a little bit of that telomere. And then those two cells divide and become four, and look at that. You've lost a little more. The four cells divide into eight, and look at that. And then once that telomere is completely gone, the cell stops dividing and dies. Okay? And that can lengthen or shorten your life. So these telomeres are very important. The lifestyle choices that you make, the food on your plate, the way that you choose to live can lengthen these telomeres. And that DNA methylation is one of the ways, and you can choose to eat in a way. If you go back and review the presentations, they're on our YouTube channel that we've already done. I explain how you can lengthen those telomeres, and that's part of what we're talking about tonight. Okay, so what is temperance? Go back to our definition. Okay, we talked about abstinence from alcohol, but also using judiciously foods that are good for us. Okay, since the definition first addresses alcohol, I want to talk about alcohol first, the effect of alcohol in the body. Does consuming alcohol affect your DNA? Absolutely, it does. It disturbs normal patterns of DNA methylation so that those telomeres, by drinking alcohol, are shortened instead of lengthened. You're shortening your life by the consumption of alcoholic beverages. It's also cancer promoting. Rats fed alcohol for 9 weeks show a 40% reduction in this methylation of the DNA. And these rats also showed breaks it actually had damage in their DNA as a result of consuming alcohol. Now, let me just add something here. I didn't intend to say this. This is kind of a by the way. Do you know that you can produce alcohol in your body by certain food combinations, even of healthy food? If you can combine certain foods, and if you want to know what those are, we can talk about it later. But the combination of certain foods and overeating can cause fermentation in the stomach, so that, you know what indigestion is? It's largely fermentation in the stomach, and you're producing alcohol, and you can be as drunk off of healthy food as you can off of alcoholic beverages. It causes the same damage to your DNA. So it's very important. This temperance is very important. Both of these factors of the reduction in methylation and the breaks in DNA predispose you. Turn the switch on for cancer in the body. Okay? Alcohol consumption causes dopamine to be released in the nucleus accumbens, which is that is a little part of the brain at the base of the forebrain. That is translated as a reward whenever you drink alcohol or consume sugar. We'll talk about sugar in just a few minutes. A lot of people, to deal with their negative emotions, turn to alcohol. But you've heard of the law of diminishing returns. Whenever you use drugs or alcohol, what happens? Is one drink enough next time? No. You have to have 2 drinks, right? Because it affects this nucleus accumbens. Let's talk about the next one here, and I'll explain a little bit more what happens here. What? The nucleus accumbens is part of the reward cycle in the brain. There's 2 neurotransmitters that are specifically related to the nucleus accumbens. One is dopamine, the other is serotonin. Dopamine is the accelerator. Serotonin is the brakes. Okay? What happens when you use alcohol is it inhibits serotonin. So you're basically undoing your brakes. You're turning off the brakes in your brain to say, I've had enough. Whether it's alcohol or drugs or sugar or caffeine or whatever it is, you are telling your brain, turn off the brakes, I don't need it, hit the accelerator, give me more. Okay? That's what's happening here. This is very dangerous. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about fetal alcohol syndrome. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want you to know, science is showing now, a lot of times we just think that it's the mother. If the mother drinks alcohol during her pregnancy, then the child may have fetal alcohol syndrome, which is birth defects, often mental retardation is a part of that. But new studies are showing that fathers who drink alcohol impregnate a woman can cause that child to have fetal alcohol syndrome. So it's not just alcohol consumption during pregnancy, but it's alcohol consumption of the father because of the effect that it has on his DNA. So this changes us genetically. This was very interesting when I saw this because I've dealt with a lot of people, I've counseled with a lot of people who have been through traumatic events in their life, in their past, maybe in their childhood, and they have a difficult time dealing with that in adulthood. It's been shown that traumatic events can change our DNA just as much as alcohol consumption can. So it's very important. It can actually scar. There was a study in Överkalix, Sweden, where there was years of feast and years of famine, sort of. And those years of feast and years of famine, they kept records. And they showed that the genetic differences in the children in the years of feast were marked over the genetics of the years of famine. The years when they didn't have a lot of meat and stuff like that. When they had a lot of grains, they fed them to the animals and then they ate the animals. When they had the famine, so to speak, they couldn't afford to feed those grains to the animals. So they ate the grains themselves, and they were actually healthier when they had the years of famine. I like to look at the Bible in all of these things because it says in the scripture, Proverbs 26:2, the curse causeless shall not come. So many times we wonder, why don't I feel good? Why am I getting all these diseases? The Bible tells us the curse causeless shall not come. Numbers 14:18 says, the Lord is long-suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. Now, does this mean that God is vindictive? No. We just read it. The curse causeless shall not come. God has given us principles in His Word of how to live healthfully. Most of us, many of us, don't understand those principles. And that's what we want to share tonight. Alcohol and hypoglycemia. Alcohol initially raises the blood sugar levels exponentially, and then it drops it just as exponentially. I have a friend who was addicted to alcohol, and once we got her diet straightened out, as long as she stayed on a good diet and straightened out, she was able to deal with the alcohol addiction because her blood sugar levels were level. People who are alcoholics, their body is actually craving sugar. It's because the alcohol raises that blood sugar level up. But 9 times out of 10, if you will take an alcoholic and you will deal with the hypoglycemia, they can deal with the alcohol addiction much better. Okay, what about overeating? Anybody in here ever overeat?
Thanksgiving's coming up.
Mute point, okay. Okay. Yeah. Studies have shown that overeating can shorten our lifespan. That we can actually lengthen our telomeres, lengthen our lifespan by a temperate, abstemious diet, by not overeating. We showed this last time. This is our new diet program. That would kind of curb somebody's a little bit, wouldn't it? We actually do eat ourselves sick. Studies have shown that overeating can contribute to things like Parkinson's. Who would have thought? We can actually decrease those symptoms of Parkinson's and those types of diseases by reducing our caloric intake.
Wow.
What about brain function? Overeating messes up the insulin, the insulin signals in the brain, so that it just messes up everything. Overeating, just eating too much, can change your DNA, can change the way your brain deals with insulin, can change your children's DNA. We're not going to deal with that one. Okay, I just thought this was an interesting fact here. The enlarged fat cells in the fatty tissue of obese people are oxygenated less than normal. And so it's actually to our advantage to deal with the issue of obesity and overeating and all that, because those cells are not oxygenated normally. Kaylin, tell everybody what kind of environment cancer likes to grow in.
Cancer loves sugar and low oxygen.
Low oxygen. So you're setting yourself up for cancer. Let's talk about sugar just a little bit. According to Dr. Mercola, I don't know if anybody is familiar with Dr. Mercola, he has a pretty good website online. He says human genes remember a sugar hit for 2 weeks. So if you binge on sugar, you eat a whole bunch of donuts or maybe a Coke and a Snicker bar, that's a sugar hit. That's a major sugar hit. Your body remembers that for 2 weeks, and that permanently damages your DNA. Not only that, but look at this. That remembering that sugar hit for 2 weeks, 1 teaspoonful of sugar suppresses the immune system by 75% for up to 14 hours. Imagine during that 14 hours, you run into this guy who has the flu bug, and you've just told your body, stop protecting me. Stop protecting me. You just gave yourself the flu. So, this bears repeating. When you eat sugar, not only do your genes turn off the controls designed to protect you from heart disease, diabetes, etc., you're essentially telling your body, stop protecting me. You're turning off your immune system with these sugar hits and sugar binges. Now, let's talk about GMOs. Now, you wouldn't normally think that we would talk about GMOs in a talk on temperance. But I think that it's part of it. I think that it's something that we need to deal with. We need to learn to read labels because genetically modified organisms are detrimental. They will mess up your DNA for yourself and your children. Look at this. The part of the gene found in Roundup Ready soybeans, these are soybeans that have been genetically modified so that they can be sprayed with Roundup and they don't die. Those genes, a little part of the genetic material of that soybean has been found in pregnant women, 95% of pregnant women, and 83% of unborn babies to those women. Eating genetically modified food changes who you are. It changes your DNA. So I think it bears covering in a talk on temperance.
Can your DNA recover if you quit eating stuff?
That's something that it's controversial. Some people say yes, some people say no. I believe that if we obey the laws of health, that we can recover largely from a lot of these things. But I do believe that there is some damage that can be permanent. And so, you know, there's still so much study, and they started putting these GMO foods out there before they really knew what kind of effect it would have on human beings. But the kind of effect that it's having on laboratory mice is profound. They can turn off cancer and turn it right back on just by feeding them genetically modified foods. And I just had a list, I shared it on my Facebook page, of foods that the parts per million of glyphosate or Roundup that is allowed or found in certain foods. And you know, even some of the organic cereals that my husband and I try to eat have pretty significant portions of glyphosate or Roundup in them, and they're supposedly organic. Yes?
If you read the label on some of them that call themselves organic, they say they can be organic as long as 95% of what's in that product is organic. So 5% of it can be whatever.
Would you tell us an example of that cereal we were talking about?
I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link for that. It's Annie's was one, Kashi was one, Cheerios.
They say they're organic.
Yeah, Kashi,
That's what I
Annie's.
Kashi.
I can't remember all the ones that say they were actually organic, but Kashi we eat quite a bit.
I do too.
You get those green smoothies, you won't need breakfast cereal.
Green
That's right.
smoothies. This is the green smoothie
I
lady.
haven't done breakfast cereal in years and years and years and years.
Good for
Amen.
you. Good for
Amen.
you. Good for you. Naki's the lady, the go-to lady for green smoothies. But one of the cereals that was close to the top was Cheerios, Wheaties. They had a lot of Roundup, a lot. And we're going to talk about the danger of this. I'm getting to it.
That's the word that's used on the label that says it's in there.
What was that?
What is the word that's used when you're looking for it on the label?
They don't have to label foods as GMO.
No more.
It doesn't,
Right. They passed
the
law.
thing that you, yes, they passed a law, it's called the Dark Act. And that's a good name for it. But they don't have to tell you that it's GMO. But we do know that there are certain things that most likely are, most soy products, unless it has the little label on it that says no GMO, most soy products, a lot of your corn products, corn chips, most of your corn chips and stuff like that. If you go to a Mexican restaurant, you're eating GMO, okay? Unless it has that little sticker, and I should have put a picture of it up here so you can know what to look for, but you don't have anything with the little
It says
sticker.
non-GMO, yeah.
Does
It
it say
says
on the
no
front
GMO.
package, or does it say in the back of the
It's a
bottle?
little square.
Yeah,
It's a
like
little
it'll list
square
like
on the corner of the
gluten-free,
box.
non-GMO, organic, it'll have all the
Yeah,
different
it's a little
things.
square, and then if it's organic, it cannot be GMO, according to the laws of organics. Yeah, right. Okay, let's go. BT is part of the genetic stuff that they have actually, let me go back, I'm just going to deal with it. Bacillus thuringiensis, I have a hard time saying this. BT is a toxin produced in genetically modified crops. It's not the same as natural BT. There is a natural BT that is very good. But the BT in these genetically modified crops is very dangerous. Here's what it is. The way BT works as a pesticide is that it causes the stomachs of insects to actually rupture. When they eat that genetically modified food that has been sprayed with Roundup, their stomachs rupture. Now, I want you to think a minute. Has anybody noticed lately that everybody's gluten intolerant, or allergies and leaky gut? And, well, hello. What does BT do to the insects? What's that?
Crohn's disease.
Crohn's disease. Yeah. It's because of this GMO stuff. It's because of this BT. A study was recently done. I'm just going to skip all of that. There's this GM food, genetically modified food with the BT in it, exacerbates gluten-related disorders, including autoimmune disorder. The autoimmune disorder is celiac disease, intestinal permeability, imbalanced gut bacteria, immune activation and allergic response, impaired digestion, damage to the intestinal wall, which results in leaky gut. According to a study done by Ohio State University, 60 to 75% of our foods now are genetically modified already. This will let you know what GMO foods are available in the U.S. This will kind of answer your question a little bit, what to look for.
Yeah.
If it's these things, if it's these foods, soybeans, corn, field and sweet corn, papaya, potato, canola, cotton, alfalfa, sugar beets, and summer squash. Apples have been approved to be genetically modified, but that hasn't happened yet as far as I know. But these are foods that have already been approved to be genetically modified. So if you eat these things, I strongly recommend that you buy organic.
Some
Because-
squash.
Because if you buy these organic, yes. And there's another thing with potatoes. They have that, what do they call it, bud nip in them, and that stuff is deadly too. It keeps them from sprouting. If you don't buy organic potatoes, you're eating bud nip, and it will mess you up. Okay. A lot of people like to say that these GMOs don't have any problem. But in 1989, over 1,500 people were permanently disabled and 37 people died from exposure to a supplement. I think it was L-tryptophan, I think was a supplement that was made using genetically modified bacteria. In 2000, a lot of people, let me just read it. There was an increase in severe allergies related to starling corn. The problem is that now this was a case of people who didn't eat the corn itself. The starling corn was fed to livestock. The people ate the meat from the animals that had been fed this genetically modified corn, and it made them sick. And so if you think I'm doing okay because I'm not eating genetically modified foods, eating animals that, you know, are, well, they're eating genetically modified stuff, so you're still getting it.
Yeah.
Concentrated.
Concentrated, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It says there that it's in the animal's blood, but I always thought it was in the fat that went into the.
We're going to get into that, but it does pass into the blood because it alters the genetics. The life of the flesh is in the blood. It alters the very core of who that animal is and who we are. It does the same thing to us, yes.
I believe it's both, and that's why the Lord said, if you're going to eat meats, even if they're clean, to get rid of the blood and the fat. There was
Has
a
anybody
reason.
ever eaten meat without the blood and without the fat?
It would be impossible.
It's essentially called cardboard.
It would be impossible.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, the Jews do it all the time, but it's just that they say it tastes like leather.
Yeah, it's very, very flavorful
It's
from what I used to
people
do.
eat the gravy too, you know,
I-
from the blood that runs out of the, you know, because that's what if you got juices running out of your meat, it
Uh-huh.
basically is blood.
Right,
And you make these gravy from that.
right. We're going to talk a little bit more about meat in just a few minutes. Okay, most of the foods that are fed to livestock these days, almost all of them, 88% of corn, 94% of soybeans, that goes a lot of it for livestock feed, GMO, genetically modified. Okay, much of the problems with GMO foods is the pesticide content. Dr. Stephanie Seneff, if you've never listened to any of her lectures, the lady knows her stuff. When it comes to GMOs and Roundup and stuff, she is the go-to source for information on that. She believes that most of the diseases associated with a Western diet, everything from GI disorders to mood swings to heart disease, is associated. It goes right back to Roundup. That's what she's also squarely linked it to autistic spectrum disorders. All right, pan frying meat. What you were talking about when the juices drip down. When the juice from grilling or pan frying meat drips down, there are compounds that go back up and land on that meat that cause genetic mutations in you when you eat that. I mean, it's serious. This is serious stuff. It's cancer causing. What else happens with meat? What other disorders, you know? What other disorders are associated with eating meat? Tell me.
Heart disease.
Heart disease. Let's look at some of them. Hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, stroke, hormonal imbalances. That's a big one right there. Did you know that they give cattle growth hormones, right? Why do you think these kids these days are so big at 13? 13 years old and they're fully developed, and the guy's got hairy chests and beards and feet like this. Growth hormones. Contamination. What about dairy? Now I'm hitting on the sacred cow, dairy. Okay. Sacred cow. Dairy actually increases, and we're told to drink your milk because it helps to fight osteoporosis because of the calcium. What happens, milk is very acidic in the body. When you drink milk, it acidifies the blood, and the body says, whoa, I've got to have an alkaline environment in order to be healthy. So it's got to have something to normalize, to alkalinize that blood. The thing that the body uses most to alkalinize the blood is calcium. Where do you think the body gets the calcium from to alkalinize the blood? It goes right to the bones. So drinking milk actually increases your risk for osteoporosis because of that. You have an increased risk in fracture, lactose intolerance, increased risk in cardiovascular disease. Cheese is addictive, as addictive as morphine in the body. Increased risk of cancer and diabetes, allergies, ear, nose, and throat infections. A lot of times whenever somebody comes to me and says, my kid has ear infection after ear infection after ear infection, just ask them, are they drinking milk? Well, yeah. Well, take them off the milk. And 9 times out of 10, it clears right up. It's because of that dairy. You wouldn't drink puppy milk, would you? Why do you Why do you drink calf milk? Calf milk is for cows. Puppy milk is for puppies. Baby milk is for babies. How long do we need baby milk? Breast milk? Not that many years, right? Maybe 2 at the most. This is our puppies, by the way. They were just born a few days ago. What about caffeine? Caffeine. Oh, that's another sacred cow, sort of. Increased risk of hypertension, increased risk of migraine, insomnia, miscarriage and fertility issues, heart arrhythmias. My husband used to be a basketball player. And didn't you drop on the court one day because of arrhythmias? Because of, I mean, his foods were Snicker bars and Mountain Dew and Oreos, and that was BD before that. Depression, anxiety, mood disorders, bone loss. Look at this. Beautiful. Isn't that pretty? How many of you have seen a beautiful cobweb on a morning when the dewdrops are on it and the sun shines through it and you can see the light, the prisms? It's beautiful. It looks like a rainbow. Another picture there. I mean, it's just a masterpiece. It's a work of art. But now look at this. This is after a spider has had the equivalent of 1 cup of coffee. 1 cup of coffee. And he can't make a spider's web. This is before coffee. This is after 1 cup of spider equivalent of a teeny cup of coffee. Now look at this. These are some other drugs. Marijuana, benzodrine, chlorohydrate, caffeine.
How do they get the spiders real long?
I guess the scientist has a little dinky syringe and I don't know.
How big are these spiders?
Might have just filled the area with smoke.
Just blow it full of smoke.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. It affects these little creatures and it affects you the same way. Okay? What about tobacco? One study done by Asa Johansson, I think is how you said it, he said that epigenetic modifications are likely not caused by substances in the tobacco itself, but by the hundreds of different elements that are released when the tobacco is burned. Smoking changes your genes. It changes your genetics. Okay? It actually, and this will be something of interest to the men, it changes the sperm quality that a man, so it's going to change what he can pass on to his children. Pass that one. 31% of all cigarettes are smoked by people with mental disabilities, mental illness. And I wonder, which came first? The mental illness or the cigarette smoking? I don't know. Let's talk for just a minute about excitotoxins. We're almost done. Who knows what excitotoxins are? Okay, if you haven't heard about excitotoxins, I encourage you, if you have access to the internet, to go to YouTube and look up a video by Dr. Russell Blaylock called The Taste That Kills. And these things will kill you. I'm telling you, you must learn to read labels. And I'll tell you, last time when I did this presentation, I brought a little paper with common excitotoxins on it so you could take it to the store with you and read. Most of the non-dairy milk substitutes like rice dream, what's the name of this? Almond dream, whatever. Yeah, all these non-dairy milk substitutes. The only one that I think there's 2. I think Eden soy does not have excitotoxins, and rice dream does not have
There's a new one
excitotoxins.
out too that doesn't.
There's what?
There's a new one out too. It's called, starts with a C. It's a lot more expensive than the rest.
Okay.
And it says right on the label,
No excitotoxins?
it says no carrageenan.
No carrageenan. Carrageenan is an excitotoxin. It will tear your stomach up.
Oh,
What
that's in a
excitotoxin?
lot of stuff.
What's that?
That's in a lot of things.
That's in a lot of things. It's a thickening agent. And they're like, I use a lot of coconut milk in recipes and stuff. It makes like creamy gravies and stuff like that. A lot of the Coconut milks have gellan gum or guar gum, I think it is. I think it's guar gum, and that's an excitotoxin.
Is it from?
Excitotoxins are usually amino acids that stimulate the taste receptors. Have you ever eaten Doritos or something that I mean, why do you think Lay's you can eat only one? You can't eat only one. They put this stuff on them that creates an unnatural craving. Excitotoxins cause the neurons in your brain to just fire, rapid, just fire, so that they wear themselves out and they die. You're losing brain cells when you eat these excitotoxins. I don't know about you, but I need all I've got. I need every one of them. Excitotoxins play a critical role in the development of serious neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, migraines, seizures, loss of vision, blurred vision, increased appetite. Common culprits. Here are some common excitotoxins. Monosodium glutamate, or MSG as it's known as. Carrageenan, guar gum, natural flavors. Anything yeast. If you see autolyzed yeast extract or yeast paste.
Citric acid?
Citric acid is an excitotoxin. Yes. And it's in a lot of stuff. Citric acid is in a lot of stuff. Aspartame, guar gum. Vegetarian meat substitutes like the Big Franks. How many did you count in that?
I picked up one can of it was called Saucettes, and it's a vegetarian sausage. I counted 9 different excitotoxins in that label. That stuff, the vegetarian meat substitutes are loaded with excitotoxins.
Loaded with excitotoxins. Okay, everybody always wants to know, how much should I eat? How do I know if I'm overeating? Everybody take your...
I should eat it all.
What's that?
I don't think I should eat it all.
Well, I'll tell you. Everybody do this. Come on, everybody. Do this with your hands. Look at your hands. Put your hands together. That's about the size of your stomach. The average adult stomach holds about a quart of food. Okay? Now somebody's going to ask me, because somebody did, what about popcorn? I eat a bowl of popcorn, you know, a big, huge bag of popcorn. Well, when you chew it up, it goes to nothing almost, right? Okay, so you're off the hook. Okay? You're cool.
Who asked that?
My kids asked that. But I'm a popcornaholic, so I would want to know that too. So that's about the size of your stomach. So I can't tell you how much you need to eat. I am not your measure. You know, you have to know your body. You have to know what your body needs. It's like, you know, the size of my fist is about the size of my heart. My husband's fist is much bigger. You know, his stomach is much bigger. I tell him, okay, honey, you can only have as many walnuts as you can close your hand on. He's like, I got it. His hands are bigger. Okay, we can actually stretch our stomach so that they will hold up to a gallon of food.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. Okay, you don't want to keep stretching it out like that. That's not temperance. So what are some tips of being temperate? Choose smoothies, right?
Yes.
Smoothies. Choose nutrient-dense foods. Our soils are depleted. And so we have to, as much as we can, choose foods that are organically grown. I recommend that highly, especially now with what you know about Roundup, about excitotoxins. Get out in the dirt and grow your garden. Put down your fork between bites. I've seen people put their face down and they shovel non-stop. You know, they don't come up for air hardly. Put your fork down and chew thoroughly. Hydrate thoroughly between meals. If you're dehydrated, your body, your brain is going to tell you that you're thirsty, but you may interpret that as I'm hungry, when actually you're thirsty. I encourage you to go back and look at the presentation that we did on water and salt, because what was the percentage? Who remembers the percentage? 95% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. I think it's 95%. Use a smaller serving dish and read labels. Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 17. Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength and not for drunkenness. So I encourage you to remember that you can be just as drunk off of your food as you can off of alcohol. You can destroy your genes, your DNA, by putting harmful substances. And I hope you have a better understanding tonight after this presentation of what harmful substances are. It's a different world that we live in now than even when I was a kid. And so you have to educate yourself. You have to learn to read labels. And I encourage you, if at all possible, get out in the dirt and grow your own garden. Are there any questions?